The day the alien ship appeared was not like any other day. It was a clear afternoon when the skies above the bustling city of Seoul were suddenly darkened by the shadow of a massive, hovering spacecraft. It wasn't like anything humanity had ever seen before. It didn't resemble the traditional flying saucer that people imagined from movies. Instead, it was a long, sleek, and elegant vessel. It's almost resembling an enormous arrow with a glowing blue energy shield around it. The ship hovered silently above the skyline, making no noise and emitting no signals at first. The world reacted in fear and confusion. Governments scrambled to make sense of the event, with emergency meetings held in capitals across the globe. The United Nations quickly called for an emergency session, but no one knew what to say, what to do, or even how to understand the message the aliens might bring in South Korea. Jinwoo Han, a young diplomat with a keen mind for language and international relations, found himself thrust into the center of the storm. At only 29 years old, he had never expected to deal with anything of this magnitude. He had spent his career handling trade negotiations and diplomatic visits, not intergalactic affairs. But when the call came in from his superiors, asking for him to take part in the response team, he didn't hesitate. There was no time for hesitation. Jinwoo sat at his desk, his fingers nervously tapping against the wood. He was deep in thought, preparing for a conference call with the rest of the global leaders. The rest of the world was panicking, but Jinwoo knew that it was his responsibility to keep a cool head. He stared out the window, his eyes following the alien ship in the distance. The sky above the city was a perfect shade of blue, but it felt unnervingly empty, as if something huge was about to happen. As he prepared to join the call, his phone buzzed on the desk. It was Soojin Park, a brilliant scientist, an expert in languages and communication. Jinwoo had worked with her on a few smaller diplomatic missions before, and he trusted her completely. He quickly answered the phone. "Jinwoo, have you seen it?" Soojin's voice was shaky but calm. "Yeah, I'm looking at it right now," Jinwoo replied, standing up and walking to the window. The alien ship was still hovering in the sky, but it was now accompanied by a strange light that seemed to pulse from within. It was mesmerizing, but at the same time, it felt deeply unsettling. "I've been working with a team of linguists and data analysts. We've been able to intercept the alien communications, but it's unlike anything we've ever heard before," Soojin said. "The message is encrypted, and it's not based on any language we know. But I think we can decode it. Do you think it's a peaceful message?" Jinwoo asked, his mind racing. "I'm not sure," Soojin replied. "It's possible they're trying to communicate peacefully, but we can't be sure just yet." "We need more time," Jinwoo nodded, even though Soojin couldn't see him. "I'm heading to the UN meeting in an hour. We need to prepare for anything." Soojin's voice grew more serious. "Jinwoo, be careful. We don't know their intentions. If this is an invasion, we'll need to act quickly." Jinwoo sighed and looked out at the alien ship. He could see the glimmer of distant lights from inside the ship, faintly visible through the energy shield. "I'll be careful. We have to be careful with how we respond. We can't just act on impulse. Humanity needs to stay calm." After a moment of silence, Soojin spoke again. "Let's hope you're right. If we don't act carefully, things could spiral out of control." Jinwoo hung up the phone and made his way to the meeting. He knew Soojin was right. The world couldn't afford to make rash decisions. The aliens had given no indication of their true intentions. And if they were planning something hostile, the consequences could be disastrous. But at the same time, he couldn't ignore the possibility that they were here with peaceful intentions, and that humanity had an opportunity to make history. When Jinwoo arrived at the United Nations headquarters, the room was filled with tension. The representatives from all over the world were already seated, each of them looking at the giant screen displaying live footage of the alien ship. The atmosphere was thick with uncertainty, and Jinwoo could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The meeting was called to order, and the Secretary General began by giving a brief summary of the situation. The world's most powerful leaders were all gathered in that room, trying to decide how to respond to the alien presence. Some wanted to send a message of peace, while others suggested that humanity should prepare for the worst. The debate was heated, with voices raised in both fear and hope. Jinwoo took his seat at the table, his mind racing. He couldn't stop thinking about the ship hovering above the city. What were the aliens thinking? What did they want from Earth? He had so many questions, but no answers. And as the meeting continued, it became clear that no one had the answers. The alien ship had been silent for hours now. But suddenly, a low hum filled the room. The screen flickered, and then a voice echoed through the speakers. It was not a human voice. It was something different. "Greetings, Earthlings," the voice said, its tone smooth and calm. "We come in peace. We are the Jir. We have traveled many light years to reach your planet. We wish to establish a peaceful relationship with your species." The voice paused as if waiting for a response. Jinwoo glanced around the room. The world's leaders were frozen, unsure of what to say. The Gyre's voice, though not human, was strangely soothing, almost as if it carried an underlying warmth. But Jinwoo could sense something beneath the surface. Something wasn't right. "Please," the Jir voice continued, "allow us to meet with your leaders. We wish to discuss the terms of our peaceful union." The screen blinked and a set of coordinates appeared on the screen. They were specific coordinates, located in the middle of the ocean. The aliens were requesting a face-to-face meeting. The room went silent. No one spoke for a long time. Jinwoo could feel the tension building in the room, like a storm on the horizon. After what felt like an eternity, the United States ambassador stood up, his face pale. This could be a trick," the ambassador said, his voice trembling. "How do we know they are really here in peace? They could be trying to lure us into a trap." Jinwoo nodded, his mind working quickly. He agreed with the ambassador, but he also understood that rejecting the invitation outright could be just as dangerous. If the Jir were sincere, humanity would miss an incredible opportunity for peace and progress. But if they were lying, it could mean the end of humanity as they knew it. "I think we should proceed with caution," Jinwoo spoke up. "We don't know their true intentions yet, but we can't ignore the possibility of peace. We must send a team of experts to meet them, but we should prepare for any eventuality." The room fell quiet again. The decision was made. Jinwoo was selected to be part of the team that would communicate with the aliens. He would be the one to help lead the human delegation, with Sujin at his side as the lead scientist. They would be responsible for establishing first contact and determining whether the Jir were truly peaceful or if they had hidden motives. As the meeting came to an end, Jinwoo felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The fate of the world now rested on his shoulders. The next few days would determine whether humanity would take its place among the stars or face a conflict that could tear them apart. Jinwoo had never felt more nervous in his life. The moment had arrived. The United Nations had approved the meeting with the alien envoys. Now he was on his way to the designated location, the middle of the ocean, where the alien ship was waiting. The coordinates they had received were clear, and the human team, led by Jinwoo, was about to board a plane heading straight to the location. He sat in the car on the way to the airport, his fingers tapping nervously on his lap. Beside him, Sujin Park was scrolling through her tablet, her face illuminated by the screen. She had been working non-stop for hours, trying to decipher the alien communication. Jinwoo glanced at her, trying to read her expression. Sujin was always calm, always composed, but today there was something different about her. The tension was in the air, and it had infected everyone. Sujin finally looked up from her tablet. "I've made some progress with the language," she said, her voice soft but confident. "There's a pattern. The words are starting to make sense, but we still don't know their full meaning. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered before. But I think they're offering us something big." Jinwoo nodded. "That's what worries me. It could be a trick. We can't trust them completely." "I know," Sujin agreed, her eyes darkening. "But what if it's real? What if they are offering us peace? We could learn so much from them." Jinwoo didn't answer immediately. He stared out the window as the car sped through the busy streets of Seoul. The world was watching. Every single person on Earth was waiting to see what would happen next. The expectations were enormous, and the pressure was starting to feel unbearable. The car pulled up to the airport, and Jinwoo and Sujin got out, quickly escorted to a private plane waiting for them on the runway. The rest of the delegation scientists, military advisors, and translators were already on board. Everyone was ready, or at least they pretended to be. Jinwoo took a deep breath before stepping onto the plane. The reality of the situation was sinking in more and more. They were about to meet aliens. Real, living aliens. And no one knew what their true intentions were. The flight was long, but the silence among the team members was louder than any noise. As the plane flew over the ocean, Jinwoo stared out the window, watching the waves below. Soon, they would be landing at a secure location near the alien ship. What would they find when they arrived? Were the Jir really here to help, or was it all a ploy? The plane touched down on a small runway that had been set up just for the occasion. Jinwoo stood up, his legs slightly unsteady as he gathered his things. The crew had already begun unloading the equipment they would need for the meeting. Cameras, communication devices, and even a few portable weapons just in case. A convoy of vehicles awaited them on the tarmac, ready to take them to the meeting site. The team boarded the vehicles and began the short drive to the designated spot. Jinwoo felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, the tension in the air almost unbearable. As they neared the site, the alien ship became visible in the distance. It was enormous, far larger than anything Jinwoo had imagined. It floated above the ground, its surface shimmering in the sunlight. There were no visible signs of weapons or aggression, just a smooth, sleek exterior that looked like it had been designed for beauty rather than destruction. They stopped a few hundred meters away from the ship, and the convoy of vehicles came to a halt. Jinwoo's heart raced as he stepped out of the car and looked up at the ship. It was an awe-inspiring sight, and for a moment, he could almost forget about the fear and uncertainty. "We've arrived," Sujin said quietly, standing beside him. Jinwoo nodded. "Let's stay calm. We don't know what we're walking into." A group of alien beings appeared on the ship's surface. They didn't walk. They glided, their bodies moving with a fluid grace. They were tall, their skin pale and smooth, and their eyes glowed faintly in the sunlight. Their clothing was elegant, flowing, and unlike anything Jinwoo had ever seen before. The Jir were certainly different from any species humans had imagined. The delegation stepped forward, and the Jir leader, the one who had spoken to them through the broadcast, moved toward them. His face was calm, almost serene, but his eyes seemed to hold something deeper, something Jinwoo couldn't quite understand. "Greetings, Earth delegation," the Jir leader said, his voice smooth and calm, much like the one they had heard before. "I am Macraxy. It is an honor to meet you in person." Jinwoo took a step forward, his mind racing. He had rehearsed his words 100 times in his head, but now that the moment had arrived, it was hard to know what to say. "I am Jinwoo Han," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in his mind. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Earth." Macraxy nodded. "We come in peace, as I have said before. We wish to share knowledge and advance your species to greater heights. You are ready to join us, to become a part of the greater galactic community." Jinwoo glanced at Sujin, who had stepped forward to join him. Her eyes were narrowed, and Jinwoo could tell that she was analyzing every word that Macraxy spoke. The offer seemed too good to be true, but they had to consider the possibility that the Jir were genuine. "We appreciate your offer," Jinwoo said carefully, "but before we can accept, we need to understand more. What exactly do you want from Earth? And why now? Why have you come after all this time?" Macraxy's expression remained unchanged, but Jinwoo noticed a slight shift in his posture. It was subtle, but it didn't go unnoticed. "We seek an alliance. Our species has traveled across many stars, seeking other civilizations to join us. We believe that Earth is ready for this. Your people are capable, and you have the potential to achieve greatness. But why us?" Sujin asked, her voice cutting through the air. "Why now, after all this time? What's in it for you?" Macraxy's eyes gleamed slightly, but his expression remained calm. "Your planet is rich in resources that are scarce elsewhere in the galaxy. But it is not only that. You have something unique. Your resilience, your ability to adapt and survive. It is what makes you valuable to us. Ginwoo exchanged a look with Sujin. He could feel the weight of their words. The Jir weren't here just to help. They had their own motives. They were offering humanity something, but at what cost? What do you expect from us in return? Ginwoo asked, his voice steady but firm. We expect cooperation, Macraxy replied simply. The knowledge we offer will benefit your species, but you must help us in return. We wish to share technology to help you evolve, but you must agree to work together with us. Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. It was clear now that the Jir were not simply offering peace. They were asking for something in return. But what exactly? I'll need time to discuss this with my people, Jinwoo said. We cannot make such an important decision on the spot. We will take this back to Earth. Macraxy's eyes flickered, and for a moment, Jinwoo thought he saw a hint of frustration. But the alien leader nodded. Of course, take your time. But no, this time is not on your side. We will wait, but not indefinitely. The Jir leader stepped back, signaling the end of the meeting. The delegation turned to leave, but Jinwoo couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. There was something about Macraxy's words, something beneath the surface, that bothered him. The pressure was building. The world's future depended on what they decided next, as they returned to their vehicles. Jinwoo couldn't help but feel that the peaceful offer the Jir had presented was just the beginning of something much more complicated. The aliens had made their move. Now, it was up to humanity to decide how to respond. The world was on edge as the human delegation returned to their respective countries after the meeting with the Jir. The pressure was mounting with every passing minute. Humanity had never faced such a decision before. Could they trust the aliens, or were they walking straight into a trap? The offer of advanced knowledge and resources was tempting, but there was something that made Jinwoo uneasy. Something he couldn't quite put his finger on back in Seoul. Jinwoo spent the next few days locked in meetings with government officials and military leaders. The situation was tense, and every conversation seemed to circle around the same question. What was the true nature of the Jir's offer? Jinwoo sat at a conference table, the room dimly lit by the city lights outside. He was surrounded by military strategists, intelligence officers, and representatives from various scientific fields. Sujin sat next to him, her fingers busy on her tablet as she continued to analyze the alien communications. I don't trust them, General Kim. The head of South Korea's military said, breaking the silence. We can't just accept their offer without understanding their motives. They say they come in peace, but how can we know for sure? Jinwoo looked around the room. Every face was tense, their eyes filled with worry. The world was on edge, and no one could agree on how to proceed. Some wanted to negotiate further with the Jir, hoping that more dialogue would reveal their true intentions. Others, like General Kim, wanted to prepare for a possible attack. Arguing that humanity needed to be ready for war, Sujin looked up from her tablet. I've been analyzing their language further, she said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. There's something strange in their communication. It's like they're not telling us everything. The words they use to describe their peaceful intentions don't match their tone. It's subtle, but I'm certain they're hiding something. Jinwoo nodded. He had noticed the same thing when he spoke to Macraxy, the Jir leader. The alien's calm demeanor had felt rehearsed, too perfect. And there was the issue of the coordinates. Why did they specifically ask for the meeting to take place in the middle of the ocean? Far from any major cities or military installations? The location seemed isolated, almost too perfect for a trap. We need to get a full picture, Jinwoo said, his voice steady despite the growing anxiety in the room. We can't rush into anything without more information. We have to keep them talking, but we also need to be prepared for the worst. The room fell silent again as everyone mulled over Jinwoo's words. They all knew the stakes were high. If the Jir were telling the truth, humanity had the chance to leap forward in terms of technology and knowledge. But if the Jir were lying, if they had darker plans in mind, then humanity would need to defend itself quickly and decisively. Jinwoo's thoughts turned to the meeting itself. He couldn't forget the way Macraxy had looked at him, the way his eyes had gleamed with an emotion Jinwoo couldn't place. It was almost as if the Jir were measuring him, studying him, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true intentions. Days passed. The human team continued to analyze the situation. Sujin worked tirelessly, decoding the alien messages bit by bit, trying to uncover the hidden meaning behind the Zhir's words. But as they worked, time was running out. The Zhir had made it clear they were willing to wait, but not forever. They would not stand idle while humanity debated their future. Jinwoo could feel the pressure mounting. The world's leaders were growing impatient. News outlets around the globe were reporting on the alien encounter, fueling both hope and fear. Some people believed that the Zhir could bring a golden age to humanity, while others feared that the aliens were nothing more than conquerors in disguise. One evening, after another long day of meetings, Jinwoo sat alone in his office, staring out the window. The lights of Seoul flickered below, a city that never seemed to sleep. He thought about the future, about what humanity would face in the coming days. Would they make the right decision? Would they accept the Zhir's offer, or would they turn their backs on the chance for peace? He was lost in thought when his phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from Sujin. "We need to talk. I've found something." Jinwoo immediately stood up, his heart racing. He quickly dialed her number, waiting as the phone rang. "Sujin?" he asked when she answered. "What is it?" "It's the coordinates," Sujin said, her voice tight with excitement. "I've been looking into the location where they wanted the meeting to take place, and I found something big." Jinwoo felt a wave of anticipation. "What did you find?" "The location," Sujin said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "It's not just a random spot in the ocean. It's a place of historical significance." "Do you know about the lost city of Atlantis?" Jinwoo's mind raced. "Atlantis? You mean the myth?" "Not just the myth," Sujin replied. "It's real. The coordinates point to an area that matches the ancient descriptions of Atlantis. There's evidence that this location is where an ancient civilization once existed, a civilization that disappeared long before our time." Jinwoo's heart skipped a beat. This was something he hadn't expected. "You're saying the Zhir wanted to meet there because of its historical significance?" "I don't know," Sujin said. "But it's possible. The Zhir may have known about this place, and they might have their own reasons for choosing it. But we can't ignore the implications. If the Zhir know about Atlantis, then they've been to Earth before. They've been here much longer than we thought." Jinwoo felt his pulse quicken. "This changes everything." Sujin's voice dropped lower. "I think we need to be very careful. There's a connection here, something that we don't fully understand. We need to dig deeper." Jinwoo sat back in his chair, trying to process what he had just heard. The Zhirs weren't just visitors from another galaxy, they were ancient, and they had been to Earth long before humanity had ever imagined. The idea of Atlantis wasn't just a myth. It was real. And if the Zhir had been to Earth before, what did that mean for the future? "We need to act quickly," Jinwoo said finally. "We can't let this opportunity slip by, but we also can't ignore the danger. Let's find out more about Atlantis. We need to understand everything we can before we make a decision." Sujin agreed. "I'll gather the data and start looking into everything I can. We have to be prepared for whatever the Zhir might throw at us." Jinwoo's thoughts turned to Macraxy. The Zhir had come to Earth with a purpose, and that purpose was now more unclear than ever. He had to be ready for whatever came next. The future of humanity depended on it. The days seemed to blur together as Jinwoo and Sujin worked tirelessly to uncover more about the Zhir and their possible connection to the lost city of Atlantis. They were no longer just dealing with an alien species, they were dealing with a mystery that reached back into Earth's ancient history. And with each passing day, the urgency to act grew stronger. Jinwoo sat at his desk, going through the latest reports. Sujin had managed to gather more data on the location of Atlantis, and what she had found was shocking. The coordinates the Zhir had given them matched a series of underwater structures that had never been fully explored. These structures, long dismissed as natural formations, now appeared to be something much more advanced. Evidence was mounting that these ruins were not only the remains of an ancient civilization, but they were also connected to the very reason the Zhir had come to Earth. As Jinwoo read the reports, his mind raced. The Zhir knew about these ruins. They had known for centuries, perhaps even millennia. But why? Why did they choose to contact humanity now? And what did they expect in return? He pushed these thoughts aside for a moment, focusing on the task at hand. A meeting had been scheduled with the global leaders to discuss the next steps. The Jir had been patient, but Jinwoo knew that time was running out. The pressure from governments around the world was mounting. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. The United Nations had set up another meeting. This time in a secure location, where Jinwoo and the rest of the delegation would have to present their findings. It was clear that humanity was at a crossroads. The choice to engage with the Jir, or to prepare for potential conflict, would determine the future of the planet. As Jinwoo arrived at the UN building, he was met by a mixture of faces, some hopeful, others filled with doubt. The room was filled with representatives from every corner of the world, all looking to him for guidance. Sujin was already seated at the table, her eyes scanning the latest data on her tablet. Jinwoo took a deep breath as he approached the front of the room. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but he knew that the world needed a decision. The question was no longer whether the Jir were trustworthy, but whether humanity was ready to make the kind of leap they were offering. The time has come to make a decision, Jinwoo said, his voice steady. The Jir have made it clear that they want peace, but they are also offering something else, something more. We have to decide if we are ready to accept their offer, or if we are going to prepare for the possibility of war. He paused, looking around the room at the faces of the world's leaders. Some were nodding, others seemed deep in thought. It was clear that there was no easy answer. We've learned something important over the last few days, Jinwoo continued. The Jir know about the lost city of Atlantis, and they have been to Earth before. They're not here just to offer peace. They are here because they believe humanity is ready to join them in something larger. But there is a cost. They want our cooperation, and we have no way of knowing whether they intend to use that to their advantage or to help us. Sujin spoke up from the table. The evidence suggests that the Jir have been coming to Earth for centuries, possibly even thousands of years. They've been studying humanity, waiting for the right moment to make contact. But what do they want? That's the question we still don't have an answer to. A voice from the back of the room interrupted. It was General Kim, his face grim. I understand the temptation to accept their offer, but we cannot forget that they are alien. We don't know what they're capable of, and we don't know what they want from us. There's too much at stake. Jinwoo looked at General Kim. I agree, General. But we also can't ignore the possibility that they're telling the truth. If we refuse them outright, we might be closing the door on something that could change everything for humanity. We might be cutting ourselves off from an opportunity we won't get again. The room was silent as the weight of Jinwoo's words hung in the air. There was no easy way forward. Some argued that humanity should accept the Jir's offer and trust that they would be allies. Others feared that any cooperation would lead to humanity's downfall, and that the Jir's true intentions were still hidden beneath layers of carefully crafted diplomacy. Sujin spoke again, her voice filled with quiet urgency. We need more time. We need to learn more about the Jir and their history. If they have been on Earth before, they have left a trail behind. We need to find out what that trail is and see what it tells us about them. If we can understand their past, maybe we'll understand their true intentions. Jinwoo nodded in agreement. I think we have to proceed with caution. We can't rush into anything without knowing the full picture. Let's gather more data, and let's use everything we have to understand the Jir better. We may need to buy some time before making a final decision. The room fell into deep thought once again. There was a sense of reluctance in the air, a feeling that no one wanted to make the wrong move. The pressure was mounting, and the future of humanity hung in the balance. Outside the conference room, the world was watching. News outlets were broadcasting the latest developments live, and people around the globe were waiting to hear what the world's leaders would decide. The Jir had been waiting for a response, and now it seemed like humanity was running out of time. In the coming days, Jinwoo and Sujin worked around the clock, diving deeper into the alien data and the history of the lost city of Atlantis. They began to uncover even more startling truths. The ruins were not just remnants of an ancient civilization, they were proof that humanity's past was far more complicated than anyone had ever imagined. There were signs that the Jir had played a role in shaping Earth's history, guiding ancient civilizations and influencing the course of human development as they pieced together the puzzle. Sujin made another discovery. "Jinwoo," she said one night, her voice tinged with excitement. "I think I've found the key. The Jir didn't just visit Earth, they interacted with humans on a deeper level. They shared knowledge, they shaped our history. But there's something else. Something darker." Jinwoo turned to her, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" Sujin hesitated for a moment, her fingers typing quickly on the tablet. "There are records and ancient texts that suggest the Jir were involved in the creation of secret societies. Organizations that have existed for centuries, perhaps even longer. These groups were given knowledge by the Jir, knowledge that they used to manipulate history. The Jir didn't just teach, they controlled." Jinwoo felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "Are you saying that the Jir have been manipulating humanity for thousands of years?" Sujin nodded, her face pale. "It's possible. They didn't just help us evolve. They may have been guiding us toward a specific goal. And now, they're ready to collect." Jinwoo's mind was racing. If Sujin was right, the Jir's intentions were far darker than anyone had imagined. They had been manipulating humanity from the shadows, controlling the course of history for their own purposes. And now they were offering humanity a choice that could lead to either cooperation or complete submission. The discovery was enough to send shockwaves through Jinwoo's mind. The Jir, ancient as they were, hadn't just come to Earth as peaceful visitors. They had been influencing the course of human history for centuries. The hidden societies, the secret knowledge passed down through generations. It all pointed to something far darker than anyone could have imagined. Jinwoo sat alone in his office late into the night, staring at the pile of data and ancient texts scattered across his desk. His mind was in turmoil. The Jir had manipulated humanity, guiding civilizations and shaping history in ways that were still not fully understood. But why? What was their ultimate goal? Were they simply waiting for the right moment to strike? Or was there a deeper, more insidious plan at play? Sujin's warning echoed in his mind. The Jir didn't just teach, they controlled. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. All the signs pointed to a long history of manipulation. But the Jir had always presented themselves as the benevolent force offering peace, sharing knowledge, guiding humanity toward greatness. But now, with the truth about their involvement in shaping secret societies and hidden knowledge, the question lingered. Had they been controlling humanity's evolution for their own purposes all along? Jinwoo rubbed his eyes, trying to push away the growing anxiety. The situation was delicate. The world was watching, and every decision he made would shape the future of the human race. The Jir had given their terms cooperation, knowledge, and peace in exchange for Earth's resources and allegiance. They had promised to help humanity reach new heights, but what if their help came with a price too steep to pay? The next morning, Jinwoo and Sujin were called to another high-stakes meeting. The United Nations had summoned world leaders to discuss the new revelations, and the pressure was mounting. The Jir's patience was wearing thin, and humanity needed to make a decision. Would they accept the aliens' offer of peace, or would they reject it and risk the consequences? Jinwoo arrived at the meeting room with Sujin by his side. The air inside the United Nations was thick with tension. Representatives from every major nation were present, their faces grave and uncertain. The stakes had never been higher. As Jinwoo took his seat, he felt the weight of the room's eyes on him. The pressure to make the right decision was unbearable. Some of the leaders were already leaning toward accepting the Jir's offer, believing that the benefits outweighed the risks. Others, like General Kim, were adamantly opposed to any form of cooperation. He had seen the signs of manipulation, and he feared that humanity was walking into a trap they couldn't escape. The time for talking is over. General Kim said, his voice sharp and firm. We've learned enough. The Jir have been here before, and they've been manipulating us from the shadows. Their offer of peace is nothing more than a ploy to control us. We cannot trust them. Jinwoo could feel the tension rising. The world was divided, and the arguments were growing more heated. Some of the leaders argued that the Jir could help humanity achieve unimaginable progress. Others feared that accepting their offer would mean humanity's downfall. "General, I understand your concerns," Jinwoo said, his voice steady. "But we cannot make a decision based on fear alone. We have to consider the possibility that the Jir are offering peace. They've given us a chance to join a larger community, to evolve. But I also understand the risks. We cannot ignore the past." Sujin, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Jinwoo was right. We cannot ignore the evidence. But we also cannot ignore the fact that the Jir have been involved in human history for a long time. We need to understand what they want from us before we make any decision. We cannot afford to rush into this. The room fell into silence as the world's leaders digested Sujin's words. The truth was clear. Humanity was at a crossroads. The future was uncertain, and there was no easy way forward. The Jir had been manipulating humanity, but could they still be trusted? Or was their true intention something far more dangerous? Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence. It was the ambassador from the United States. His face grim and resolute. "I've been thinking about this for days," the ambassador said. "We've heard the arguments from both sides. But there's one thing that no one is talking about. The Jir are not the only ones who have been to Earth." The room went still. All eyes turned toward the ambassador. "What do you mean?" Jinwoo asked, his voice barely a whisper. The ambassador took a deep breath before speaking. "There are rumors," whispers, "really that there have been other visitors to Earth. Other alien species. Ones that have interacted with humanity long before the Jir ever arrived. These visitors, unlike the Jir, did not come in peace. They came with other intentions. And now we have to ask ourselves, are the Jir simply the first of many to come?" Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors of alien encounters before, stories of strange sightings and unexplained phenomena, but this was something different. If the Jir weren't the only ones to have visited Earth, what did that mean for humanity's place in the universe? The ambassador continued, "We cannot ignore the possibility that the Jir are not acting alone. There may be other factions, other alien races that have their own agendas. The Jir may be trying to position themselves as humanity's protectors, but what if they're only the first wave? What if they're trying to gain control before the other factions arrive?" Jinwoo's mind raced. The ambassador's words were unsettling, but they made sense. The universe was vast, and humanity had only just begun to scratch the surface of what was out there. If the Jir were trying to gain control, there was no telling what other alien species might be lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. The conversation grew tense as the leaders debated the implications of the ambassador's warning. Some of them were convinced that humanity needed to take a stand to resist the Jir's influence before it was too late. Others argued that the Jir's offer of peace was too valuable to pass up, that humanity needed to cooperate and join the larger galactic community. Jinwoo listened carefully, his thoughts a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He had spent so much time trying to understand the Jir, trying to uncover their true motives. But now, it seemed like the situation was far more complicated than anyone had imagined. The Jir had been manipulating humanity for centuries, but did that mean they were inherently evil? Or were they simply acting in their own self-interest, trying to protect their place in the galaxy? And if they were working with other alien factions, what did that mean for Earth's future? Sujin's voice broke through his thoughts. "We need to make a decision, Jinwoo. We can't keep waiting for answers. The Jir are not going to wait forever." Jinwoo took a deep breath, his mind clearer than it had been in days. "You're right," he said. "The decision is ours to make. But whatever we choose, we need to be ready for the consequences." The world's leaders turned to him, waiting for his decision. The weight of history pressed down on his shoulders. This was the moment that would determine the future of humanity. Jinwoo looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the world's leaders. He could feel the weight of the decision before him, but he knew one thing for sure. Humanity had to be ready. No matter what came next. "We will meet the Jir on our terms," Jinwoo said, his voice firm. "We will listen to what they have to say, but we will not give up our autonomy. If they want peace, they will have to prove it to us. And if they want war, we will be ready." There was a moment of silence as the leaders absorbed his words. And then, one by one, they nodded in agreement. Humanity had made its choice. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth would not go down without a fight.